Welcome to Nifnex TV Perth. My name is Zeeshan Pasha and I am your host. Now, Nifnex TV is where small business challenges that you send in to us get addressed by an expert panel to help you grow your business. Now, the case study we've got here is a small business, which is an accounting business, which has 5 staff and 1 remote staff. They're trying to toss up the ideas between taking their servers into the cloud, and how is that actually going to affect their staff working from home, from a motivation point of view, from productivity point of view, and also the reporting. So let's check with the panel and see what they have to say. Lesley, Rueben, Anton, welcome to Nifnex TV. Great to have you here. And we've got a great case study on our hands. Can we just go around introducing ourselves and what perspective you're going to address this case study from, and then we get into the case study after. So Lesley, let's start with
Right. My name is Lesley Dewar, and I run an online business called Stories My Nana Tells, but I also have quite a lot of experience in terms of working with employees who are either remote mentally or remote physically and using technology to deal with that.
You'd be interested to hear that.
Thank you. My name's Rueben Taylor, and I'll be covering this from a business coaching and mentoring point of view, where it fits into actually your business strategy and where's it going, and representing business wealth educators.
Perfect.
My name is Anton Menkveld, and I run Design Life Technologies, and my perspective will be from a cloud systems and business automation perspective, where CRM and so on comes into it, and how you can use these online tools to obviously facilitate remote working and so forth.
So the first thing that sort of comes into my head is, how do the systems actually work, and is it better to go online, offline, or have a server in physical office, or have it online, or take it to the cloud really? So what is your perspective on that, jumping straight into it?
Well, the thing is with the choice between local physical servers and remote servers is really a case-by-case scenario, I guess. These days, cloud-based systems seem to be the thing that's growing more and more, and the reason for it is because a lot of the hassle of having these servers in your own offices can be outsourced and can be made somebody else's problem, where you only pay for the service that you use. So from a cost perspective, it's really cost effective for smaller businesses. The major advantage in terms of remote working is obviously that cloud-based systems are accessible from anywhere in the world, which really facilitates employees working from home or from remote locations and being able to log in and see what's going on, and basically essentially have their work desk in front of them wherever they are. So massive advantage in that sense, although there are still business cases for local servers.
Yeah.
But cloud is definitely the way to go if you're looking at working remotely.
Okay.
One of the things that I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and we've come so far from the old days when you would attach a file to an email and sort of shoot it off to somebody if you weren't in the same office. So if you are working with employees who are remote and you don't necessarily want them, or it's not appropriate for them to actually have remote access to your in-house computers, Dropboxes are absolutely brilliant. And the other thing that I've thought about quite a lot is how you communicate with those employees, because if they're not on your physical premises, it can become a real issue in terms of making them actually feel part of the team. And so one of the things that I know is that communication is really, really essential. If you're going to have a team meeting and you bring everybody in, for crying out loud, don't turn it into a witch hunt, because when those people are actually coming into the physical location, they really need to feel as though they're coming home, rather than being dragged in from wherever they like to sit working in their Gucci PJs and put through the ringer in front of all the other people who have to turn up every day, 9 to 5 in the office.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think communication is one of the key issues if you're going to be having people work in remote locations, that you have to have a very, very good way of communicating with them, whether you use dedicated email addresses specifically for those people, whether you might use a secret group on LinkedIn or Facebook, which is a very, very efficient way to work and can be very, very secure, or whether you actually just allow them to email you or message you You know, I really think it's a matter of thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And using technology really well.
Which could stump them there. Really, thinking outside the square is not something that everyone does, but then again, applying that to the technology side of it.
Yep.
But what's your perspective on this from a business coach perspective? If a client came to you with this issue, what would you tell them?
There's a couple of things. One is technology I see is critical to business success.
Yeah.
And things I like about the cloud-based computing, it seems a lot more functional. Lots of things start to talk to each other. It's a lot more flexibility, which ultimately gives more speed. And people want things quickly these days.
Yes.
And I know Anton was sharing about from the team perspective, but I also think from the client perspective. You know, if you're on site, it can deliver the information they need while they're on site, whether that's a quote, whether that's information, you're doing a report, that stuff is going to be a real advantage for businesses.
Yeah.
And so I think businesses need to be embracing technology. To pick up on your point about that team and communication, I think that's absolutely critical, probably the number one thing. I've run virtual teams in my business. I look at best practice in the world, and best practice teams meet daily.
Yeah.
And so even if my team's here, or if they're overseas, or working from home in Perth, like I have, my main assistant does that.
Yeah.
Is that we're talking every day. We're checking in on the score every day. We're talking about what's working, what isn't every day. And I think that can happen. Put that onto some online collaboration tools, like I use programs like Basecamp, Teamwork PM, where you can have that interaction, managing projects, but everyone's contributing. So the tools are there.
From the reporting perspective, you can actually use that as well, because you need to know what they're doing, what they have done.
Yes.
So what tools would you use for reporting side of things, to making sure that they're doing what they're doing?
It depends on what it actually is. If it's sales type work, then there's sales activity, and that can be used off with CRMs. I know we were talking earlier about Infusionsoft. That's something I use in my business, and that can give up-to-date reporting for me in my business. And then also, good project management tools that just keep an eye on projects, for those longer-term projects, or even shorter-term projects for a business.
In motivation point of view, working from home compared to working remotely compared to work from an office, what are the pros and cons, you think?
Well, for some people it work better in the mornings, some people work better in the afternoons. Some people are totally motivated and able to work without having you looking over their shoulder or checking up on them, or feeling that you're checking up on them all the time. So I think working remotely can be a really great option, because it actually allows the employee to get their work done in a time frame that actually suits them. I mean, if somebody likes to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and whack out 3 hours of work by 8 o'clock, well, good for them. I'll get into the office at 9 and half my work's done already. I like that. But I do think you need to have a very good accountability model for people who work, because I have seen in the physical offices where the ability to do flexi time in some state government offices was abused to the max. So it is really important that you have really, really good accountability, and that can be as little as an incentive scheme for getting work done. So it encourages people to get it done quickly, but get it done well. And that incentive can be, physical rewards, virtual rewards, or just, a gold star at the end of the month. I don't know, whatever turns them on. But I think when people are working remotely, it's really important that some recognition is given to their work that everybody else in the team can see, so that they're not out of sight, out of mind.
I think that, excuse me, one of the challenges of working remotely is that it puts a lot of emphasis on your business processes and your business systems. So if you have your business processes pretty well mapped out, it makes it a lot easier to find software that's suitable to facilitate the whole process, like Infusionsoft, where we'd use that to create workflows, which is based on your existing business processes. And because these tools are online, it's possible to create tasks for people that work remotely and also monitor the progress on these tasks. So, but the emphasis always comes back to your process that you've got sorted out inside of your business, and then applying that or applying the technology to your existing processes. And in that way, it makes it a lot easier to bring in remote people where they would get a task in their diary and all the information that they need to perform that task will be there. There will be a due date. The due date will be monitored by the software to make sure that it's done on a certain date. So for you as a manager, it makes it a lot easier to manage. But the challenge obviously is to create these processes and put these systems in place. Which is easier when they're just in the office. As soon as they step out of the office, like Lesley said, the accountability factor there becomes a little bit of a challenge. But good processes and systems then sort of help with the accountability and keeping people accountable.
And how do you account for IT breakdowns?
Good question. I guess it's do I have to answer that?
Yes, you do. I just couldn't get it done today because I told wouldn't work.
That's generally not a good excuse in my experience, because with being cloud-based as well, there's such a lot of redundancy in the system. I'm not saying things never break, but if your internet connection don't work, these days you can go to a coffee shop and you can get an internet connection.
Plug in your dongle.
Plug in the dongle and you've got various ways of getting an internet connection. Being cloud-based, those servers are generally hosted on redundant infrastructure as well, which means the services just don't go down. So it's less of a problem, I feel, than even inside of an office where the power can go down and the whole office is down. So I think it's less of an issue, to be honest.
People are still people. If they're going to make excuses, they'll make them, but it's not accepting those. That's what I find is you still got to manage them, and even people will work. Some people will work better from home than others. Like my assistant has quite a people side to her, so if she was fully locked up in her office, works great for her because she's a stay-at-home mum, or working mum, not stay-at-home, so she can have that flexibility.
Yeah.
But she needs that people contact as well, so I make sure that I provide that. We catch up a couple of times a month, and also talking to clients, talking to people, not just behind a computer and looking at tasks all day. If that makes sense.
There's specific kind of people who can actually work from home and some just can't. But,
Yes.
Addressing the fact that they're working from home, what about people working from overseas? It's hard to sort of catch up with them. With something that you recommend for certain businesses, maybe?
Well, it's interesting because I've used a number of outsourced employees, both longer term ones as well as for short term projects.
Yeah.
I've found it can be very effective at times. Sometimes it can be quite challenging. So for a number of reasons, one, I found it'll refine your delegation skills. So you have to really know what you're delegating, and what really works well was what you touched on earlier, Anton, about when you've got really good systems and people can follow those, then it can be very cost effective to train people. I've had clients, for example, who have outsourced some of their drafting work, for example, and saved about 40% on their wage bills just by outsourcing it overseas, which gives a competitive advantage, and business are definitely doing it. But it isn't for everyone, it isn't for everything.
Yeah, that's true.
And
So how do you guys feel about using Skype, or even like Facebook face-to-face?
Or Hangouts, for example.
Or
Hangouts.
I'm still getting I've tried a couple of
So
Hangouts,
hanging out.
Hanging out.
music.
and it was really quite funny because the one that I did, the guy is an Englishman and he's a trainer, and he is going to tell you how it is done, and so I was sitting there for about 15 minutes trying to find a polite way to leave this hangout because I didn't really know how you do it.
You can always take the power window.
What? Because he just spent so much time explaining how to do it, and I was like already streets ahead of him, and I think just like, let's get on with it. Sorry, okay, but what do you guys think about, Hangouts, Skype, Facebook face-to-face time, that sort of instant communications, and webinars? I mean, what's wrong with using a GoToWebinar for a weekly team meeting?
so I use all of those, so particularly GoToWebinar and Skype for my team meetings. I do like the video, it gives that extra dimension of body language. I think we're still communicating people to people.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And I think that's critical. I think if you're ever running webinars or team meeting, then it isn't just about talking. And then, ask questions, ask them to put their hand up. You can do a virtual hand raise in a webinar, and just make sure you're using all those engagement tools when you're doing them.
Yeah.
But I find they help productivity. and certainly with it saves you time. Like you can do that. I know I've done a lot of my coaching over Skype. I know some clients initially resisted that. I know some people are still face to face. I think it depends on the nature of the person, but a lot of them have actually adapted Skype and used it in their own businesses to have meetings in Karratha or somewhere out, which then saves them the time and the plane trips and everything to get up there. You can still get stuff done.
Very cost effective.
I manage a small software development team in South Africa, and I generally use Skype for sort of weekly meetings where we'll have a more formal date and time arranged for the meetings. But we've got Google Hangouts, which is basically switched on all the time, and we would fire off questions to one another, and we would just check in and so on check in with the team, basically on an ongoing basis. And I find that works really well. And if there's something to discuss with Hangouts, you can very quickly just switch over to video mode, and then you'd have a video conversation for 10 minutes, and then switch back over to just text typing. And I find this is a great way of keeping in touch with the team because I'm really closely involved with what they're doing. So this in this way it helps us to stay in touch.
That was a bit embarrassing for me because I was doing my first Google Hangout on the iPhone, and I had not done one before, and I didn't really know how they work. So I'm sitting there, literally in my PJs, because it was in England, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was reasonably late. And I'm sitting there in my PJs, looking like I don't know what, with a glass of red in my hand. I said, "Yeah, fine, I'm ready to go." "Oh, really?"
I think that raises the common work at home thing. It's the attitude. You've got to switch off. You've got to have that work ethic and things at home. And even when I worked at home for a period of time, I'd still make sure I'd dress for work. Had definite shut off and start times, things like that. So you get that in there, and you don't get caught in your PJs or glass of wine or kids running around the background, all the stuff that can happen.
All the things that can happen at home.
I guess in your case you're coming up with inspirational ideas for to write stuff. So wine helps.
Make it work, yes.
Well, I really just was not quite prepared for the fact that it was going to be on video to start off with. Yes.
Good switch it off.
Yeah. So and I mean I don't have children running around at home, but I do have to shut the door to keep my 96-year-old father out because he's forever putting. He says, "What are you doing now? What are you doing now?" I said, "Just go away, please. I'm working."
Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
All I'd like to add is just that I think even though there are some challenges, and we touch on some of the challenges, the advantages far outweigh the challenges. Generally speaking, businesses are able to attract, I think, a really good talent and really good people by being able to offer a lot of flexibility and remote working and so on, and utilizing lower cost bases in other places of the world, and even utilizing time differences. So there's a lot of advantage. There's a little bit of an onus on you to get your ducks in a row and get your system sorted out. But all in all, I think it's a great advantage for us, and the internet has made it possible, which is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me is when making a decision like this, don't just think about right now. Often people think, I better jump on this cloud thing or jump on this. Think where your business is going to be in 5 years. And think, where your workforce will evolve, what sort of technology in your industry might evolve, what sort of practices and things, and start to build that, because that way you won't just be chopping and changing based on whatever the next thing is. You actually start to build a business that will last and will ride the wave in your industry.
On that topic though, do you think that's going to make people sort of put plans off because I'm thinking next 5 years, so I've got better systems, let's just wait and hang out a bit. Not hang out, but hang out a bit. Since we're talking about hangouts.
Hanging out. It's not so much putting off the decision, it's like the decision if you're going to relocate to home, just say, look, is this just my lease is up, maybe I'll relocate to home. That's more of an in-now decision, but what size will your team be in 5 years' time? Are you planning to double or triple it? And then can it scale at home or can't it? So not to me, technology will change, and some of the programs we talked about today may or may not be around.
Yes, true.
In 5 years' time, it will be very different. But think about where your business is heading, in terms of premises and remoteness, and there'll be technology to suit whatever path you choose.
And at the moment, I'm the only person who's writing stories for Stories My Nana Tells. I've already had my first approaches from people wanting to advertise on my website, and I mean serious approaches to advertise on my website. I'm getting people at wanting to actually write for me. So this is this is an excellent opportunity for me to really start thinking about where is my business heading? How do I want it to look in 5 years from now? Do I always want to be the person who's writing all the stories, or do I just want to sit there and manage a whole team of other nanas who are writing great stuff in it? Who knows? So it's
Nana forum.
you really do need, it doesn't matter what business you are in, you really need to start with the end in mind. You need to think, where am I going to be in 5 years from now? How am I going to get out of this business with money in hand?
Yeah.
And what are the tools that are going to get me there?
We've had a great discussion. Now let's wrap it up here, and see you next month for the next case study. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Fantastic.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a great discussion, wasn't it? Thank you to the panel for their time, and also for sharing their knowledge and expertise with us. If you're a small business owner and you've got challenges that you're facing in business, send them in to us and we'll get that addressed by a expert panel. Like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, watch the other case studies we put up, pick up a paper from 150 locations in Perth, and again, come along to our networking events that we run. I always say, when the right people come together, magic happens. See you next time.